Hi, you've reached Scott Anderson. This is What's on Scott's Mind. No, the slides aren't done yet. I was nearly done with them, but I got derailed by some things last week, setting up 3D printers, doing print jobs, things like that, that I ended up not finishing the slides. Now, I'm really close. I've got them laid out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually open the slides right now, and I'm going to continue the talk track. And then what I thought I would do is I will release. Let's see, where does it? Where is that one? Oh, there it is. Okay, so I'm going to release a video with all of them instead of just this piecemeal like I've been doing. So we left off last week on, I believe, we made it all the way to part 2. And part 2 is embedded debts, or the hidden layers within an organization. So my apologies for the falderall and not doing a good organized job. I will finish the slides this week, guaranteed, because I have a little bit of time where I'll be able to do that. So I will get it done. We're talking, however, about embedded debts. Now, embedded debts are really different, right? You got to be careful. First of all, there is one argumentatively painful debt that you have to consider. And that is not one of the 4 debts that I've detailed, but it is the environmental debt, or the environmental debt, or the ecological debt an organization has. Many years ago, I went to a great class from a professor at Penn State, and he talked about 4 types of companies, A, B, C, and D, where A was innovative, fresh, long hair, get things done fast, break things, create new things. B was, used to be an A, now a little bit more steady, still innovative, but not as innovative as an A. C is kind of in the beginnings of the cost market, in the beginnings of a mature market, and so not quite as agile. And D is, wholly and completely in the cost market. If you apply that to the broader concept of, apply that to the broader concept of the blue ocean theory, right? D companies are, neck deep in the red ocean, whereas A companies are in the blue ocean, right? So when we think about that, that ecosystem debt is important. So where are you in those 4 stratospheres of organizations is really important. But when you start talking about the hidden layer, what's underneath, it's really important that you consider the impact zones of what it means, right? Because the hidden layers, the buried layers of debt, really ultimately become friction, right? As the organization tries to move along the AI path, those hidden layers become friction, and friction becomes a structural limit, right? Why is that? If you think about what friction represents, if you think about what friction is, friction represents the ongoing structure that organizations live within. But friction is also the thing that slows you down, right? When you think about, what causes objects thrown to return to Earth? Well, it's friction, right? What causes a rocket ship to require so much fuel to make it out of Earth's atmosphere? Friction and gravity. Gravity is the other force, obviously. Friction is a force slowing an object down. Gravity is the force returning it to the gravitational source, right? So those 2 forces together pull a ball out of the air. But friction is a contributor to that, and you have to be aware of that. So organizational frictions that are caused by embedded debts become really critical to think about. And so as we move through the embedded debts, it's very important, and that is the entire part 2 of my book, The 4 Debts, is literally going into the reality, right? And so the first one is painful for me, and it's painful because it is ultimately the story of my career. I have spent the majority of my career trying to build knowledge management systems, trying to get knowledge management systems into a place where organizations could use them, leverage them, and build on them. And that brings up the reality, right? The collapse of truth. The embedded debt in data debt is the collapse of truth. We see that in society today for many, many, many years. The reality of truth was that we saw science as truth. And scientists would test and evaluate and build truths. And those truths would be things that we would utilize, right? The scientific method is built to discover truths, right? The scientific method is educated guess. Okay, that educated guess is pretty good. Can you test it? And if you can test that educated guess, it becomes a hypothesis. And if you can test that hypothesis, it becomes a theory, right? It has to pass the test. It can't fail the test to become a theory. It has to pass the test. But the reality is, it's a simple process, right? Ground truth is something that has been tested, not conspiracy suppositions, not the insane stuff on the internet today, but things that can be tested, things that have been tested, things that have been evaluated by many other people. Because every scientist has the desire to be the one that proves or disproves something, and they don't actually truly prove it. They simply test it to the point where we can't say it's wrong, right? That's the difference. And that's what people don't get about science. But science isn't the ground truth that it was. In the society we have today, the ground truth isn't real. I've seen the ground truth start to slip away. And in organizations, that collapse of truth makes an AI system very, very risky. Because AI can be just as stupid as a human being. And I do mean the word stupid, as in unable to speak, unable to produce an intelligent thought. That is the reality of AI, right? And AI is, in and of itself, bound to the same truth structure as a human being. So that reality becomes critical path, right? What is it that you're doing? How is it you're doing it? And so on and so forth. So within data debt is the embedded debt that results in the collapse of truth, or as the AI people like to call it, ground truth, right? Get to ground truth is what everybody always says. Well, okay, get to ground truth. It's an important reality. All right, so that is the end of What's on Scott's Mind. Hopefully, I'll get the slides done if I have some time. Have a great week.